This is Sonic. Oh, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, hello, hello. Sorry for any technical difficulties that you might have experienced. So today it's me, Stefan Repin. Again, Juliana is gone, as you might know, but it's still me, and we're still strong, and we're looking to improve pharma with our insights, and have some wonderful guests today. But before I jump into talking about guests, let's discuss let's actually talk about the topic. So there is a great deal of talk about data and decisions, and basically about how pharma companies and martech are integrating between one another. So today we'll talk about a very interesting topic, personally for me, is data to decisions, and how can we unlock powerful customer insights in pharma, life sciences, biotech, animal health. And we all think that customer insights actually drive strategy, but do they actually guide the right decisions, right? So, if you're in pharma, medical devices, consumer health, we wanna come with we wanna promise you that today we're gonna talk about stuff like how do field teams become insights powerhouses for your whole marketing and sales machine. How are the digital and traditional methods different? What works nowadays? Turning data into an action, and of course, return on investment, because that's what everyone wants to see. AI's role in the future of pharma insights at the end of the day. And I have some wonderful speakers today. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Ellie Thomas, who is the she's the communications director at El Camino. Hi, Ellie. It's my pleasure having you here.
Hi, good to be here. Good to see you.
It's my pleasure to have you here. And actually, Ellie has an announcement to make. Like, I was really surprised. I was really we were expecting to James to be here, but then I thought maybe Ellie is a better guest actually.
Well, of
So we want
course.
to have some. We want to no, because we want to have some female empowerment actually. Like we want to have. We want to have more women in like higher positions. And I know the story of Bernice Campbell, who's got a lot of like speaker engagements, and her, let's say, public career started with us. And I want to give the spotlight to Ellie now. You're gonna be the star.
Oh, thanks,
Um,
Stefan. Yeah, I can do my little plug quickly. So yeah, as you mentioned, I'm a director at Camino. We're a medcoms agency, so our clients are pharma and biotech companies. We work really across the full spectrum of medcoms, but we've got a particular focus on doing things differently, whether that's through AI, new technologies, or other ways to innovate. Um, And a bit about me, I've been in the industry for about 15 years, primarily in rare disease communications. I originally studied philosophy, actually, so never shy away from a good debate. So, really looking forward to the conversation today. So, yeah, thanks for having me. And just quickly, as Camino, we're actually hosting our own conference called Adventures in Pharma on 1st of July in London, which is going to focus on the application of AI in healthcare communications. In particular, some really practical tips and tricks for use of AI in that sector. We've got really cool panel, amazing topics and case studies to cover. So anyone interested, we'll try and pop the link in the chat or wherever is good, so people can have a look.
Guys, subscribe. So under the in the comment section down there, there's gonna be a link to the event. I'll see you in July
Thanks, Stefan.
in London, right? It's gonna be good weather like today in Bristol,
Oh, of
where
course, always
Ellie
good
is.
weather in London.
Cool. We have. Let me introduce Ben. Hey Ben. You guys know Ben. He's been on our webinars before. He's a star, as many people at 28B, and I'm super super excited to have him here today.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Keppie, and I'm a senior consultant at 28B. It's good to be here, Stefan.
Hey Ben, it's my pleasure having you both with Ellie here today. Cool. We want to start just getting into the nitty-gritty details. So guys, I saw your comments. Like, thank you a lot for coming with those comments and basically questioning is because what we're about a debate. We like a debate, and as Ellie said, like she's
Yeah.
into philosophy. I don't know if Ben is, but he likes sales. I like sales marketing as well. So We want to start with a very interesting point. And Ellie, what was the question
Well,
you
I
wanted to
noticed
put?
there was a question in the comments about how you might approach insight generation for niche therapy areas like rare diseases versus mass market drugs. So I thought that was a really interesting one to start with, and I really appreciated the question because obviously rare diseases is that's my background. Um, so yeah, I mean, maybe just to give my perspective on why I think it is a bit different in rare diseases, and you guys obviously chip in as well. But I think it requires a bit of a different mindset in those kind of niche therapy areas. There are fewer HCPs, fewer patients. There's often a big diversity in how a disease might present or is treated or is understood. So I think focusing more on qualitative data through interviews or ad boards or maybe even social listening is a really critical part of insight gathering in that area, because it's there that you can really dig deep and kind of pick up on the nuances of the treatment pathway. The other thing I wanted to flag from my experience is diversity of insights as well. So not just prescribers, but other perspectives as well, particularly patients who can sometimes be more knowledgeable than their own doctors in rare diseases. That diversity is just so important. And just quickly as well, to give an example that's kind of stuck with me of why that's so important. We were working on a rare metabolic condition that affected both men and women, but most of the treating clinicians were older male specialists, and many of whom had kind of limited exposure to female patients who had a very different disease presentation. Now, when we spoke to patients during the insight gathering phase, we kept hearing from women that their pain and fatigue were being downplayed or misattributed, sometimes for years and years. But the HCPs that we spoke to genuinely believed that they were seeing only kind of mild cases of the disease. So this was a really big disconnect that was acting as a barrier to diagnosis and treatment. And that disconnect in the insights helped us to develop new materials that reframed how the disease manifested in women and how to have those conversations. So um, I'll end that there, I promise. But that for me is a great example of why you need diversity and insights from different stakeholders, and ideally qualitative insights as well, particularly in rare diseases where it is so complex and you need that kind of patient ambassadorship as well.
Awesome. I like the case. I don't want to get into well, we're here to debate, but I don't want to get into that debate, which is that most of the fields and drugs are tested on men, and things are tested
Oh,
on
so
men, and
that we could do a separate webinar on that. I've got a lot to say.
Yeah, I figure starting with cars and like how
Oh,
the
absolutely.
airbag works and all of that, and the fact that you've come with this like insights that basically the drug works differently on women. I think it's a big hitter. Um, Ben, do you have any? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, adding on top of that rare diseases thing, I think it's a really interesting conversation. And I noticed also in the initial post that there was also a comment talking about what are the differences between, potentially pharma and not and more kind of consumer industries. And I think that almost it's interesting that even in pharma, it differs between the types of products that you're using, the therapy areas you're in, and how rare a disease is, and that it almost the kind of hinge point, rather than it being industry related, it's more so customer journey related.
Yeah,
The rare
absolutely.
diseases will be
It's
so
the
different.
audiences, isn't it, that you want to think about really, regardless of the kind of sector you're working with. So yeah, completely agree.
Exactly. And it also opens up really interesting opportunities because for the likes of rare diseases, getting that one patient conversion onto your therapy, well, first of all, it's going to be a higher return investment for the company. So they will be able to invest in more interesting ways to capture these niche insights that will ultimately help to identify a more niche patient population. But
Yeah.
also, it's kind of, I guess, harder to do that in the first place, or has a barrier to getting those insights in the first place that won't typically be used across all therapy areas or be applicable for all of pharma to be able to invest in and use.
Yeah. I completely agree though, like, and I don't want to drown myself in cliches too early in the conversation, but definitely in rare, like every patient story matters, because you can uncover like a really key clinical insight that can just suddenly explain why patients aren't being diagnosed for sort of 10, 15 years. So yeah, I think it is that kind of qualitative depth as well as breadth of insight that really matters in areas like that.
Yeah, I would agree here. Let's see if we have any brand new questions. We don't have many brand new questions, so I'll continue with the ones we had. Right. So there is a question from Tom. Hi, Tom. If you're listening, what's the biggest mistake pharma companies make when trying to turn data into decisions? Any piece of advice?
Yes. So I think the first thing is kind of getting to the nitty gritty of why isn't it being used? Why isn't that data kind of being used? And ultimately, is it because it's that data isn't available at the right time? Is it because, potentially the person who you're wanting to use that piece of data to inform their decision doesn't even know that that data is available within the company? Or is it just a complete other reason? For example, it's presented to them, but it's done in such a way that they can't decipher it. It doesn't really resonate with them. It's presented in a, potentially in a report that is
Overlong,
really
big long
cumbersome.
PowerPoint.
Exactly, really cumbersome,
Mhm.
and essentially just that in itself acts as a massive barrier. So I think
Yeah.
in terms of trying to overcome that with a piece of advice, it'd be really thinking about what insights, well, first of all, what data is there, and how do you turn that into an insight and fit that into the daily workflow of who you're wanting to ultimately use that information for. And
Ben, sorry for interrupting. Let's take an exact case. So let's say you have, maybe from your experience with integrating, let's take Viva, for example. What's the most common mistake you see, for example, when people talk about data and they try to like make sense of the data?
yeah, so one of the pieces will be, I mean, if we take just, you mentioned Viva. So one of the capabilities of Viva is that the CLM content that is used in call, you're naturally going to get ultimately what slides were used from a particular piece of content in a call,
Yeah.
in particular, assigned to a particular core report. And ultimately, the kind of that that information in itself isn't particularly useful for the field team, because ultimately they know what content they've shown in call. But what that can be really useful for is to inform content iteration from a marketing team standpoint. And quite often that isn't actually used or even considered by marketing teams, despite they've got all of that data in the CRM. It's not particularly in the daily workflow of a marketeer to be able to, go in and have an overview of, what particular slides of my content is being used, and therefore how do I really dissect that in order to inform, the next iteration of content, or potentially to just go out into the field and kind of, question a little bit deeper into, why is this content being used a lot, or why isn't this content being used a lot? So that's
I
a
completely
simple.
agree with that it should be kind of iterative as well. I think a big problem that we see is companies kind of doing the big kind of insight reports once a year, and it's a tick box exercise that they have to do. And then actually they've already written their strategy by the time they come around to looking at the insight report. The more that you can do to kind of make it a real iterative, adaptive process, I think the more success you'll have, because like obviously the landscape is changing all the time with new data coming out, new changes in the landscape, changes in countries like the US, for example, like things are changing
Yeah.
frequently. So you really need that kind of adaptive process. And I just wanted to add as well, like from a medcoms perspective, my comment on Tom's question would be to just get really clear on what question you're trying to answer with the data as well. Like I think vagueness is a big miss with insights as well. So work out what kind of specific business question you want to answer and tie it to your strategy. So is it like to do with why patients aren't being diagnosed earlier, or why physicians aren't initiating treatment earlier, or what's holding back kind of patient adherence. The more specific you can get with the question you're trying to answer, that will really direct your insights generation strategy. So that's something that I've seen a little bit as well, is just this almost vanity metrics of like, we've got thousands and thousands of insights, but like it's not actually doing anything. I think that is kind of something that I've seen a little bit of as well. Sorry for jumping in there.
No, of course. Well, you shouldn't be sorry. Well, what I'm seeing around pharma life sciences, but like mostly about like maybe biotech more, is that you do have a lot of data, but at the end of the day, who owns the customer? Like nobody owns it. Is it the clinical team? Is it the doctors? Is it anyone else? And everyone has a little bit a piece of the puzzle. It's like little kids playing a game. Everyone has a little bit of the puzzle, but nobody has the um, nobody has the big puzzle, so nobody sees the big picture, and it's so I don't know, because of regulatory measures, or I don't know why, but no, like basically you can't build a complete picture of how you touch the same customer. And it can happen that like the field teams is touching the customer, like the doctor or the HCPs way too often, and then of course they'll be annoyed, right? So here comes the next question. Paulo, hey, Paulo, how are you? ¿Cómo estás? The question for Paulo is coming from Paulo is: will you talk about collaboration across teams? How can medical affairs teams collaborate with sales to enrich insight generation without crossing compliance lines? Oh, I love this. So, personally at Platforce, and I'm seeing in that other CLMs, usually the affair teams are our second customer, biggest customers after field teams. So they do have a lot of interactions with customers actually. But what do you guys think? How can
I think it's a great question. Again, like I completely agree that collaboration is so important, because there's no point working in silos. Like ultimately, the HCPs are the same, right? And particularly in an area like rare diseases as well, it's such a small group of customers that you need that collaboration to have an effective strategy. I think if you can all sit down together at the start of the process and work out what your cross-functional strategy is and what kind of question you're trying to answer, that's a great place to start. And obviously that's also a good place to put up any guardrails to think about as well, because clearly you don't want feedback from sales teams, for example, to be informing medical claims. So you need some kind of guardrails in place, but I think defining that early, you can still have a really effective kind of cross-functional insight strategy that's a lot stronger as well, and more effective and more budget efficient, and all of those things as well. What do you think, Ben?
100%. I think that there are obviously compliance barriers in place, but sometimes these are almost used as an excuse to just avoid any communication between two functions like medical affairs and in commercial. And there is no strict rule that says that base level of communication, either through cross-functional planning or from just general awareness of engagement activities, not necessarily the in-depth core report of what's covered in those calls, but those actual just engagement touch points and being aware of it in itself are crucial for enabling collaboration without annoying healthcare professionals by over contacting, which is obviously going to be a problem because the HCP will ultimately see it as the same company. It's the same.
100%.
They don't care that you're from two different departments. They've still just got this brand perception of your company when engaging with people that are ultimately representatives of your company, whether they're a sales rep or a medical field team member.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so our customers see us as a whole, and then when you okay, and then we got another question, but let me finish. So I think it's people are right now with coming with AI incoming. We have I personally use a lot of ChatGPT and Perplexity to do my own research, and I bet we as customers, we buy drugs. I mean, at least you guys buy ibuprofen or aspirin, right? You do your research to understand what's in that drug. I think a lot of us customers, we do that, and I think the doctors do that as well, and I think they're even in more depth. So I think when an HCP reaches out to, let's say, a field rep, a sales consultant, I think they'll want some more specific information than whatever they can find online. That would be maybe some clinical trials. That would be something that maybe is not open to the public, or something that can be very specific. So I think for a simple chat, like just blah blah, I don't think there is going to be any sense for the field teams to check in. But for anything more specific, I think it would make sense to have these HCP engagement platforms, like or to actually come with some more proactivity from the field rep, to uncover like more insight about, like, hey, why aren't you prescribing this drug? Like, what are you actually afraid of? Like maybe handling some objections right front. Next question. So, hey, Alan, you're fine. I see. Hi, Alan. I see. Alan says, I see a lot of regulations everywhere. GDPR, HIPAA. How will these increasing data privacy regulations impact insight gathering strategies? Oof. Okay.
So I think
It's a tough one, Alan. You go, Ben.
I was just going to say, I'm also conscious I didn't particularly give a background to myself when introducing. I think it's a nice segue here to that. So, although may probably be aware already from my previous answers, I work across commercial and medical pharma, and I really help them to orchestrate better customer experiences and also build up first-party data and capturing and reporting on that data and turning them into customer insights. And although I'm field team focused, work kind of organizationally across the mindset, skill set, and tool set spectrum. And with this question, we often hear it quite a bit on the tool set side of things. So one way of capturing customer insights through field interactions is through closed loop marketing materials. So the likes of digital sales aids or closed loop marketing presentations. And there are a variety of interactive mechanisms that we can use there in order to capture customer insights, whether it's interactivity by answering a certain question, drag and dropping things into priorities, or responding to guessing a statistic potentially. And some of the questions that we get from compliance teams when implementing this kind of insight capturing interactivity is this market research? No, how is this compliant? And ultimately, we're already, by utilizing a CRM system and closed loop marketing, we're already utilizing customer information within the CRM compliantly. It is a compliant system, and ultimately that content, the data that's being collected around content usage, is all being assigned to an individual. And a lot of these kind of insight capturing things from field activity is very much so the same and handled in the same compliant manner. So it doesn't typically, from what we've seen working with a variety of pharma companies across the globe, we don't run into, on this side of things, run into any particular regulatory problems from that standpoint.
I actually think as well, like I'm going to try and turn problems into solutions. I was going to say solutions, not problems then, but problems into solutions. Like I think these kind of things can be seen as blockers, but actually they can push us towards some more intentional insight gathering strategies, because it stops you, that thing we were talking about earlier about hoarding lots and lots of data for the sake of it. I think it pushes you towards being more clear about what kind of insights you need, why you need them, and how you're going to use those insights as well. And that really helps to kind of force better planning, better questions, and more ethical engagement right from the start. I also think there's maybe a role for AI here as well to help with kind of the anonymization of insights and help you kind of just pick out the key themes. Like from a comms perspective, that's what you really want, is the themes that can help you know how to act. So that kind of use of AI to help you anonymize or aggregate data, and then using that to inform your strategy. I think there's potential for that as well.
Yeah, I think that would summarize it. Well, unless well, they haven't mentioned. So there is the regulation. They haven't mentioned tariffs actually, Trump's tariffs. So that's another regulation.
Oh, I don't think I've got a polite comment on that at the moment. So we're going to move on.
Just want to ask you, like, in a second, is that affecting you guys in any way, the new tariffs?
I mean, I don't know what you think, Ben. I feel like the honest answer is we don't really know yet. Like, I think, and it seems to be changing day by day, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's too early to pass judgment.
All
It'll
right.
be interesting to see what our clients
Yeah.
make of it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that the main thing is, I guess, a little bit of economic turbulence that and an feeling of uncertainty would be the main thing, but nothing specific to customer insights or
No, I'm more worried about
direct
my own
sales in
mortgage
pharma
at
right
the
now.
moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. All right, cool. We actually got a brand new question from Andreas. So Andreas, he does commercial strategy, sales excellence. 1 second, just want to present him. Digital transformation. Andreas, we're gonna ask right away. He used to work at Sandoz, sales excellence, lead region, Europe. Awesome. Okay, so his question is, can you share best practice on how pharma companies can go from fragmented insights generation to automated next best action, specifically in terms of sales and marketing? So again, can you share best practices on how pharma companies can go from fragmented insights generation to automated next best action, specifically in terms of sales marketing? Ben, do you want to help me answer this? Because I think you have more experience with Viva, and I think Viva is, they do it. Maybe they have more data. You have more data. Can you help me answer this one? And then
Yeah,
we'll
of
go to
course.
Ellie.
And if there are any follow-ups, I'll try and keep this brief because there could be a very long answer and very long journey for getting a full answer to this question. So if there's anything we want to dive on a little bit deeper, then we can touch on that. So ultimately, next best action. What's fundamental for this to be really useful for sales teams and marketing teams is for the underlying data and use cases to ultimately be right. Because you see a lot of next best actions where theoretically you can almost have fragmented insights and have next best actions and them both still not particularly add value. So for example, if you're basing your automated next best actions for field teams and you're just essentially giving them a nudge to see a doctor that they've got on their planned list of calls, that's not particularly useful for the sales team because they already know this quarter I'm planning to meet this doctor. That's not particularly useful to drive any meaningful sales activity. But so what we ultimately need is, rather than fragmented insights generation, we just need to build up those foundational basics of the underlying data being accurate and ultimately kind of it needs to be accurate and aligned to something that will be useful for a particular use case. So I think the first step will be thinking exactly what data do we need in order to make meaningful next best actions for whoever you're wanting to target, sales or marketing, and then ultimately moving that forward as your North Star. I'm conscious that it's quite a long journey between fragmented insights generation, all of the transformation around that, and then turning that into use case building particularly for next best action engine that kind of sits externally to your CRM, and then ultimately integrating that in from a MarTech solution and engineering standpoint, and then making sure that that's presented in a way for the field team or marketing team to then be able to actually derive an action from that.
Ellie, you go.
Well, I can speak, I guess, more from a comms perspective
Yeah.
than what Ben's just covered. I think, again, it's making sure that those insights are connected to and aligned to a clear business objective, and then working out what insights are actionable. I hate that phrase, but it really sums it up really well. Like what insights that you can do something with, because there's going to be things that you aren't able to change, like local barriers to reimbursement, for example. So doing some kind of prioritization of insights based on, firstly, their potential impact on clinical practice and their feasibility for you to actually do something about them. That can help you work out which ones you're able to kind of act on as well. So yeah, I think that's kind of a helpful framework to work out what action you can take as a result of those insights.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question for Ben, but my insight is that, well, what I'm thinking is that you obviously have, so something that I heard also on this webinar is that garbage in, garbage out. So if the amount of the quality of your data is garbage, then you're gonna get garbage. So, well, maximum you can get is that like a sentiment analysis or something, and it's gonna say, "Oh, boo!" like bad pharma or something, right? It's like it's not gonna tell you much, right? It's not gonna tell you much if it's like maybe too emotional, or it's gonna give you like a general sentiment, which I guess social listening with a lot of pharma is connected to. You already know, so that's not the real insights. My question would be a little bit more like around the fact that right now we have AI, and AI is supposed to make these decisions like better in a way. And I can not gonna lie, I haven't worked much with Viva or IQVIA, but in terms of the quality of your next best action, is it better? Did it become better in this, like in other solutions that you guys have worked with? Let's say it doesn't have to be a CRM, CLM, but it can be like a different solution. Do you think AI has actually improved the existing like flow?
As in, has it improved
In terms of results,
in
so they implemented AI. The people, like, there is the Einstein has been implemented, for example, and
hmm,
there's been some improvement in terms of like results, campaigns, yada yada yada, basically. Do you think it
yeah,
actually changed anything?
I think it
Go
has
ahead.
in certain elements. I mean, like the technology that we have is getting ever more sophisticated, and we're only learning more as time goes on. So, a few years ago, there would have been a lot of potential talk of AI and trying to shoehorn it into particular use cases, so where it's not actually solving a business problem in an adequate way. Whereas now, because we've kind of learned and almost been burnt by, attempting to do that, we're almost narrowing down what are the value added use cases for AI application. So I think in general the trend is, yes, it is getting better, but ultimately it all comes back to what you've said at the start there, which is ultimately if you've got rubbish data and foundations at the start, or if you're potentially trying to compensate for that by buying third-party data, which will be probably very expensive, it might lack nuance and relatability to actually drive the change that you're wanting, either through low sample sizes or the kind of data's a little bit muddied because it uses data across markets, whereas you're actually trying to solve for a really specific local market need.
Yeah. I mean, there's no ignoring it, is it? It's clearly, it is massive and it's going to continue to be so. I do think from a communications perspective, definitely it's helped with that insight analysis piece, just knowing that our clients, they're wearing so many hats at the moment. Internal bandwidth seems to be so limited. So just having that AI as an extra extension of the team to help do that first pass of analysis of the insights, help extract the key themes, saves teams time and make sure that they don't miss anything. And yes, you definitely need to go over it with a kind of human lens as well. But I do think it's got a really great role to play in supporting the analysis of that data. And it can also help with unconscious bias as well, because I know when I'm looking at lots of data and insights, there's certain things that I really want to see or that I'm expecting to see based on my experience of that disease or working on that product with a client. And I think AI can help with removing some of that and just identifying other patterns that might not be so immediately obvious. So yeah, we've actually got some great case studies of that in our event in London that I mentioned earlier, if anyone's interested.
Can you give us a trailer? Like, can you like show us a little bit about maybe one case study? Just tell us a little bit about.
Well, I guess I've got a flyer right on my desk. I guess one case study that we will probably talk about is use of AI to support with Congress insight reporting, which like obviously as soon as everyone's been to a Congress, they want their insights report like yesterday after the Congress finished. Historically, we've only been able to kind of turn around insight reports like a month after the Congress, just because with the best will in the world, it's still hundreds of sessions that you need to attend and write up and generate insights from. So AI has really kind of sped up that process and meant that we can get our analysis and reporting done a lot more quickly. So yeah, lots to be excited about, definitely.
Awesome. Yeah, because AI can see patterns, and then obviously you see patterns. Monkey see, monkey do, right? So it like gets right away, right?
Definitely. I think as well, just in terms of the question that's on the screen now, which is take on AI co-pilots for field reps. Are they really helping generate better insights or just adding noise? I think for the most part, we see it potentially leaning more on the scale of adding noise, and that's probably for a few different reasons. But in our industry, we're quite heavily focused on jumping to the tool set and the next shiny thing, without really thinking about the end user. What is their current, mindset when it comes to actually seeing the value of these tools in the first place? And then also, what's the current skill set currently, and what are the kind of gaps that we'll need to fill with a true change management program? And quite often, they're just not quite as invested in as they should be in order for us to get that true return investment of things like AI copilots. Well, and then of course there's the other side of it where talking again, a lot of the first party data within pharmaceutical organizations, potentially it might be building on shaky foundations. If you're linking up your AI copilot to a data source that's potentially out of date, or that it's not quite matching up, or it's just not particularly interesting data in the first place, then you're going to get mismatched recommendations or recommendations that just aren't particularly useful. But we're seeing a change in terms of the MarTech stack up of pharma companies, where everyone's now kind of shifting to, or realizing there's a need to shift for a single source of truth for customer data, and looking at specifically implementing data lakes that will act as that central source of all customer information and peripheral related information too. And there's a lot of investment as well in the kind of APIs that go between the data lake and systems, whether it's your CRM, whether it's your marketing cloud solution and things. So that ultimately, where we are moving closer to removing some of those barriers of out of date data, mismatched data, and siloed systems. And we're seeing that in reality here today, a lot of solutions being built out, especially in large pharma.
Just to add to Thomas's question as well, and I don't know if this is where he was going with it, but just because it's a fascinating area for me, I've heard about AI co-pilots being used to kind of support reps with conversations and analyze the most kind of relevant talking points as the call's going on, suggesting follow-up questions or flagging key insights during the conversation's flow, and making that sales call as it's happening more personalized and more relevant to the customer. I'm not a rep myself, so I don't know if people are kind of using that in practice, but I think that's a really cool tool to kind of continue exploring, just to make sure that those interactions are as impactful as possible, without completely replacing the human element, of course, because none of us want to be taken over by robots.
I wanna, yeah, we're not gonna be, dead. We're still gonna be here, but I wanna, I wanna. So you mentioned API, and I think I haven't heard this much in pharma, but like there's a new protocol. It's called MCP, and the new protocol MCP is supposed to work with I don't know how you say that in English, Raj or RAJ. And basically, it's so you have ChatGPT and you have like Claude, you have other like models. But what eventually they do, like they don't connect all the data in your whatever departments you have. So eventually you have like other types of solutions, like I don't remember the name, but like basically you can create a company-wide like let's say model, like a RAG model, which would combine all the data lakes you have inside the company, which sits in different places. And with that said, you can create a better next best action, basically, having all of that. Um, but I'm seeing a different challenge actually right now with companies, at least the ones who come to Platforces, is like they say, we have this, we have 5 companies coming to us and saying we have the best AI for you, and they're like, has the strongest user case. So it's like basically AI fighting against another AI for the best user case, and then there's just like they just can't decide. So that's another challenge I'm seeing pharma, life sciences, biotech have right now. There is a question from Noor Suli. Hi Noor, how are you? Today we are going to answer the question, how do you justify continued investment in insight generation when budgets are tight? It's a common problem for me. Well, for us as well, Noor. Uh, uh, you guys want to take the microphone?
I mean, I feel like it shouldn't be seen as a separate task, but something that can be woven into the ongoing kind of conversations and processes at every level of the business. Like it's something that should be seen as essential to having a deeper understanding of the customer, patient journey, treatment pathway. And it also means that everything that you go on to develop is based around a real need as well. So I think what we'd recommend to our clients is rather than having a separate budget line for insights, try to integrate them into existing initiatives, because that is ultimately the kind of purpose of having those insights, is to make those other initiatives better. So yeah, and also showing the return on investment as well. If you've got insights, you get better personalization, better engagement, and better results as well. So anywhere you can kind of tie it back to that return on investment, I think that's what I would recommend. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I was thinking back to the previous conversation that we had about commercial and medical silos, and from a customer insight generation standpoint, even medical, part of their whole purpose and fit within a pharma business is to generate insights for commercialization. Ultimately, even though if they're non-promotional, they're ultimately employed by a commercial business and are ultimately on a payroll that is kind of relies on that commercial model. So in terms of those insights and the justifying the continued investment in it, it is absolutely crucial at pretty much every point of the medicine life cycle to pass insights upstream. But if we're specifically talking at the medical and commercial side and budgets are tight, not always does insight generation have to be a costly tech solution. Insight generation can take many forms, and it can be as simple as sending a survey out to a particular team and getting some insights back in a way that you can analyze it in order to to drive strategy forward, or even something as simple as updating content like we discussed earlier. So I'd almost, in terms of continued investment and it being and budgets being tight, just really look at those high impact ways that you can generate insights that don't necessarily involve a expensive martech solution, or and they're all possible. You've probably already got, if you're, I'm not sure if Noah's in Pharma, but
Yeah.
all of the core notes that the field team within your organization have, if you've got oversight of what their behavioral pre-call objective is and what's written in the call notes field, there are going to be lots of insights already generated in there. There's just got to be a way of kind of filtering that out so that you get visibility of it when compliantly allowed. And yeah, it doesn't always need to be an expensive martech solution, essentially.
All right, cool. Let's go with, hey Joey, how are you? Says great topic, thank you. When working across markets, how do you adapt your insight generation approach for countries with limited digital infrastructure or zero maturity? I'll start a question this one. I'll answer the question now. So a big part of Platforce's customers are coming from Latin America or Asia, say Philippines, Vietnam, for example. Some are Indonesia, although Indonesia is technically in G20, so they're rapidly developing. I would say that the doctors there use a lot of TikTok. I was I was I was amazed about on like where they get their information, but the doctor like literally told me like, yeah, watch TikTok, and then that's where I get my information. That was really interesting. That insight. At the same time, I saw a lot of like field reps, a lot of the connection between the field rep, who's a distributor for a certain drug, and the medical, the HCP or doctor in this case is very tight still, but there is like a lot of, maybe in Latin America not so much, but like in, besides Brazil, but in Asia you see like a huge scale of industrialization. So maybe a few years back they did not know what the CRM is. Nowadays they want to buy like IQVIA and Viva, and they're looking into like platforms. So I would say that for them, the data is still very crumbled. They don't know how to put data into their CRM. So you have to start with like educating them so you can get some data, which is like not that sales rep like those. Oh, I know this customer, I know what to sell him, like. But then once the field rep leaves the company, you have no data in your CRM or in your CLM about like what actually customers buy, and like where was the outcome. So I think digitalization in terms of like digitizing, documenting all this like knowledge which sits in people would be, I think, the major challenge I'm seeing. But you guys, I'll be glad to hear your opinion here.
So I can take it from a sales standpoint. So obviously, most sales teams across the world, they're very, very skilled at asking high value questions and kind of exploring HCPs or customers' pain points, needs, or particular leverage points, which ultimately are, I think, one of the golden sources of customer insights. So if there's limited digital infrastructure and CRM maturity, to me, that's where the most untapped potential would be. And as I said before, using something as simple as a survey to be able to get that information, if it's not already in the core notes of the CRM, is a fantastic way of getting those insights already from people that are already in your organization. And it's just kind of an untapped potential of insights.
Yeah, well, for me, I don't know if you guys would agree. I'd just say use an Excel. Use something to track your insights, even if you don't have a big kind of platform set up. You don't just start with the baby steps, right, of making sure that you are collecting and analyzing those insights in some format. We've worked with clients who are at very different stages of their kind of digital setup and have kind of countries within that who were also at very different stages. And I think it's just working with what you've got and not letting that be a barrier to using insights to inform your kind of strategic planning. Yeah, there's always something that you can do.
Yeah, that's my point. The fact that you do not have a very fancy CRM. By the way, guys, you don't have. You want something easy, fast, and flexible. Use Platforce. Self promotion. You still can keep your documents. You still can keep your insights in an Excel file. In fact, I open an Excel file every day to check on my routine, like which is like gym, meditation, and so on. I think salespeople can do the same for their field work. So I don't think it's a hurdle. All right, cool. Let's go to the next question. We are almost at the end, so let's see what other questions did not we answer. Oh, okay. There is a question from Karen Botha. Hi, Karen. So Ben, Ellie, Stefan, is face-to-face still more effective than digital channels for uncovering real customer needs? Or is digital becoming more important? Don't say 50-50.
I really wanted to say 50-50 when I saw this question, but I'm
No,
going to try.
no,
I'm
no,
going
no,
to
no,
try
no,
not
no,
to.
no, no.
I mean, I do think there is still like something irreplaceable about that human connection in face-to-face interactions. Like, especially me coming from a rare disease perspective, that kind of trust and empathy that you build up in a face-to-face interaction. It's really hard to recreate digitally. And yeah, I mean, face-to-face is where you can get those kind of off script conversations, start reading body language, dig deeper into the questions, and get those kind of real depth of insights that you get from kind of in-person conversations. But it is a little bit of both. Like, I think digital engagement is a great way of getting insights more quickly and getting that breadth of insight. If you need an answer on something more quickly, then clearly using surveys or some kind of broad brush digital engagement is a great way to do that. And then hopefully supplementing that with kind of face-to-face insight gathering as well. So no, I'm going to say it's not 50-50. I think face-to-face still wins on depth, but digital definitely has some power as well, and it's just how you use it and making sure that you're using both in the right way for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. We're all humans. We all have our different preferences. One individual might not provide any opportunity to engage through digital channels, and therefore it's going to be impossible to get it'll be impossible to uncover what their customer needs are through those channels. So face to face would be king in that scenario. But there's also the other side of the coin where it's, we can't ignore the fact that there is an ever increasing preference towards digital channels for information. And ultimately, with the wealth of data that's available online, it acts as a fantastic place to be able to uncover real customer needs. So, for example, there's tools like Egg Insight that scrapes the internet for particular topics that are hot and really digs deep into the what are the things that are being talked about, what are the challenges that are being raised for you to be able to take into consideration, and that data set's going to be much more big than the typical pharma field team that's going out there and talking to the key people within accounts within a particular country. So I wouldn't say it's 50-50. I'd say it depends on, it's more of which one is more effective is dependent on what the objective is, and also who it is that we are specifically looking to get those or uncover those needs from.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Stefan?
Yeah, Stefan thinks the following. So I want to top it up with this because we don't have much time left, but it's just food for thought. So there is a post from Dan Buckland. He's been on this webinar for a few times, So there is a post that I really liked. He says this: "We're overestimating the value of our field teams in pharma, and we don't even realize it." A few weeks ago, I asked you what we tend to overestimate in pharma marketing. The votes were fairly evenly split. Hello, 50-50. Social media, reps, MSLs, podcasts, webinars. And here's the truth. We actually underestimate the value of all of them, except one, reps and MSLs. So he comes with data. That's what I like. The data says that the data comes from EPG's Future of HCP Engagement. That what HCPs consider critical or very important, and what they think is critical, and what is not important is there's a huge gap. And he says that it's not about when we deploy them, but how we deploy the field reps. So HCPs aren't saying they don't want reps or MSLs. They're saying they don't find value in the traditional way we engage through them. So he's again, it's in Dan's words. So it's time for pharma to wake up and fundamentally rethink HCP engagement models. Basically, where there is a content journey that empowers HCPs to self-serve, right? So they can do their own research, which I think any of us does nowadays. We have ChatGPT's Perplexity and so on. And the second part, redefine the field teams, so they're not just like order takers, and they don't just go and then see a doctor just because like he's my friend and so on, but basically create a more of a consultative approach to sales. So in modern sales, I'm seeing, so like I'm seeing a transition from, hey, do you want my drug, which equals to, hey, do you want a demo of my product, to basically like more of an educational from a place of like learning, educational, like like a consultant, where you don't go and pitch the drug, but in fact you go and basically present the right information about the drug, which is like more like as a parent, a friend, a school teacher, think it that way. And I would agree with, like we cater to field reps. That's what Platforce does, but I think their role has to change. It has to become way more educational and be more consultative. That would be the last question I have for today.
I think listen to the HCPs as well. I think it's impossible to give a kind of broad brush answer to what one HCP customer or other stakeholder prefers versus another group. Like, they are different customers out there, varies a lot between markets, between specialties. I don't want to keep talking about rare diseases, but I think that is a particular
Yeah, go
area
ahead.
where
Of course,
that
you
kind of
can.
face-to-face, that human interaction and it is so important. But yeah, I think it depends on the customer at the end of the day, and just making it personalized to them, whatever kind of channel interaction type of content resonates with them. For me, I think that's the most important kind of route to go down.
I'd almost argue that what you were describing there at the latter part is exactly what sales reps should and have always been, or at least the top quartile ones are. And the only extra caveat that I put on top of that is that ultimately we shouldn't be ashamed of asking for the business at the end of the call. Of course, we're there to play a role in educating the features and benefits of products, uncovering HCP needs, and proactively working to solve potential problems that they have, or overcome barriers that they have. Ultimately, like I said before, it's a commercially aligned organization, and they're there for a reason. They're there to do a job, and it's ultimately in the sales rep's case, to ask for the business and demonstrate why, through clinical value proposition or a service value proposition, why their product's the best, and the HCP should ultimately prescribe or refer for their product. The other kind of flip side that I'd say, because we were talking about what do we overestimate in pharma, and one of the things that I think we overestimate is the content that we produce in pharma. As 77% of it, of content that we create for field teams, is rarely or never used, and 40-50% of global content isn't actually localized for local market. There's a massive content waste at the moment, and there's a fantastic event in London on the 5th of June that is available for people to sign up for. It is live only, but there should be a recording afterwards. But it is a panel discussion, live in person, with some drinks afterwards as well.
Awesome.
Tackling that exact topic.
I'll be there, Ben, and I'm going to use that as an excuse to segue into Adventures in Pharma again, which is we're going to talk a lot about how AI can help with exactly that problem of kind of making sure that content gets used, gets properly localized and adapted, and doesn't just sit at the global level. So yeah, but completely agree. I think that's a massive issue, and it's something that we need to kind of work together to solve. So.
Awesome.
And ultimately, that content is what is going to, enable the sales team beyond being able to talk, whether it's virtually in group meetings or face to face. Like, that content is what's going to provide that educational piece that you were speaking about earlier, or sharing that added value.
Content is king. Is that what they say? Or
Exactly.
queen these days, I think.
It's already
Both.
queen. They say tools are the tools are kings, but it changes all the time. You can. It's like Trump's politics, like. Anyway, enough about politics, guys. See you, everyone who was here with us today. Thank you very much. You're awesome. If you want to know more about customer insights, in particular about exact AI cases, see you in London on the 10th of July.
1st of July.
1st of July. Okay, on the 1st of
brewery in
July.
London.
And there's going to be Ben in there, and there's going to be Ellie in there, and finally there's going to be James Turnbull as well. So awesome to see you guys, and have a great evening. Thanks for being with me.
Thanks a lot. That was good fun.
Thanks,
Really
everyone.
enjoyed.
Yeah,
Have a good one.
great questions too.